so. Let's go and have some adventures. Let's go and have some adventures with Thomas. Let's go and have some adventures. Sodor's a fun place to be. Sodor's greatest adventures. Sodor's greatest adventures.
One day at the Treasure Coven's gate, the Fat Controller arrived. He had news for James. James, I have a very important job for you. What is it, sir? He asked. Well, remember when you worked on Apple's branch line one time? Yes, sir, I do, said James. Well, I want you to help him again. Wait, really, sir? Yes, only him and Philip are running it. Boko is away. We're getting his engine checked that the diesel works, so I want you to help out while he's away. Yes, sir, said James. He was delighted with the news. Ivor, I am putting you in charge of the branch line while James is away. Yes, sir, said Ivor. Oh, sir, said James, can I bring Rachel with me? Of course you can. Then, you do need for goods trains after all. But all we will need to stay here, including your slip coaches, so Ivor can use them as coaches. Yes, sir, said James. And the factor walked away. So you know how to run the branch line while I'm gone? Said James. Of course I do, said Ivor. For Philip was helping me the time when told and at the time when him and Rachel didn't get along. Oh yeah, I remember that day when Philip annoyed Rachel. Oh well, said James. Anyways, I better be going. James popped out onto the turntable and went to collect Rachel. Rachel was over at the goods sheds. James backed down. Come on, Rachel. We're going to stay at Wellsworth for a few days. Okay, she said. She was looking forward to see Edward, especially Philip, since two of them are close friends. Bye, Ivor, said James and Rachel together. Good luck, you two. Good luck with the branch while I'm gone, said James. And James puffed away. As Ivor watched them leave. At Wellsworth, Philip and Edward were busy arranging trucks and coaches around the yards. They were shunting them into place before the next trains. Philip normally shunts like now for all the yards, but he does work on Edward's branch line, and he does pull a few trains here and there on Edward's branch line. But he also helps shunting the yards at Wellsworth. Edward only takes passenger and goods on his branch line, but he does sometimes help on the main line like James does, and he sometimes shunts in the yard as well. Oh, have you got much more to shunt, Edward? Said Philip. Don't worry, Philip, said Edward. The Fat Controller said that James will be on his way since he's coming here for a few days while Boko is away. Once Boko returns, James will go back to his line. Just then they heard a toot of a whistle. Hey guys, said James to Rachel. They puffed in on track. Hey you two, said Philip. Hello, said Rachel. Good timing, James, said Edward. We were just talking about you. Me and Rachel are here now. What do you want us to do? That's good of you to bring Rachel. Now, said Edward. Whenever you pull your goods train, you need Rachel, correct? Yes, said James. Okay then. Now, have you done our shunting recently? Of course I have. Do you remember, me and Henry have changed, we shunt our own trains now. Well, I think Henry does time to time, but I do shunt my trains. That's good, said Edward. Good. Now, with coaches, you could take red ones like you did on when you first came here. Sure, said James. Besides, I have pulled red badminton coaches a lot before, you know. Of course you did, said Edward. Now, let's get to work, shall we? Edward went to find some more rolling stock to shut. Philip followed. We better join the fun, said James to Rachel, and so they did. So James put Rachel into a siding thing, which was over here, a siding near the turntable on the floor. Edward, Philip, and James busy shunt trucks and coaches around Wellsworth yards. Three of them were working as a great team. Wait, I better shunt a goods train, right? I believe so, said Edward. But if that's the first train you're taking. Said James. What? I think my first one is pointing some pastures, probably. If you're sure, James, you could take the red ones over there. Okay then, I'll just shunt these trucks away, said James. James pulled into a siding and left the trucks there, and he picked up the coaches. However, there was another little small piece of track that leads out of the yard, and James went that way and took it to shunt the coaches to the platform. James shunted them onto the platform at Ellsworth as he switched tracks and buffled up. Look after Rachel while I'm gone, said James to Edward and Philip. We will, said Philip. Don't you worry, said Edward. But we'll mind her. James smiled. Thanks, you two. And with that, with the guards with the blue, James puffed away. James steamed out of Wellsworth. He was glad he was helping Edward and Philip on Edward's branch line for a couple of days. He liked doing it. Yet it reminded him of his own branch line. He was making good timing as well. The pastures behaved. There was no complaining from them, and they were all doing fine. Later that day, James stopped at a red signal with his train. While he was waiting, he heard two engines talking. That must be Gordon and Spencer, he said. Indeed it was. Two of them were on the other track. Gordon was pulling the express, and Spencer was taking a goods train. Like usual, since he takes goods and passengers time to time. He's not pulling you to the boxes, of course. You know, said Spencer, so you steam team fans do have some good stories to tell at your sheds. I think you mean our sheds now, said Gordon. Remember, you do live there now. Spencer smiled. It's truly an honor to live at Tidmouth sheds now, although there was been a few tough times, like when we tried to see who was the strongest, and Sonny or the time when the sodor news came, I spoiled it. Yes, said Gordon, we all did something wrong. It was still the steam team no matter what. You're right, said Spencer. So the signals turned green for Spencer and Gordon, and they puffed away. I'm glad our rivalry has ended, said Gordon. I suppose it was a good thing that James moved out of Tidmouth sheds. But the two of them didn't know that James heard them. But that word that Gordon said about James really made James' feelings hurt. James started to wonder to himself, what if I do miss Tidmouth sheds? He said. What if Edward and Henry misses it as well? I mean, sure, they have got their own you home before me, and much longer than me, I suppose. But that doesn't really explain it," said James. James sighed. Maybe Gordon was right. Maybe Spencer was the right replacement for me. James sadly puffed away. James was starting to miss Tidmouth Sheds, the home he used to be in. Later that evening, James pulled into Wellsworth. He finished his passenger train. James sighed. Just then, there was a bump. "Oof," said James. "Who's that?" "It's only me," said Philip. "Philip, what are you doing? After your coach is away." "I can do them, you know." "I know, but you look exhausted when I saw you pulling in. And so I thought I can take you while you're going staying with Edward." "Oh, in a minute," said James. "There's only 2 berths. There's me and you and Edward. If I stay in Edward's berth, if I stay in the shed with Edward, where will you sleep?" Philip chuckled. "Don't worry, we have a spare shed. It was built when it was built when I moved into that shed with Edward." "And," said Philip, that's the spare shed where Buckle sleeps in." "So," said James, "what you're saying is that you sleep in Buckle, so I sleep in your berth?" "Yes," said Philip. "Oh, I get it," said James. But he still preferred if he. But James was still thinking about Tidmouth Sheds. Philip shunted the coaches away. Rachel saw James. She was wondering, "Is everything okay?" "Is everything okay, James?" she asked. "Oh, everything's okay," said James. But he didn't want to tell anyone about his problem. Edward was just sitting in the shed, ready to get to sleep, and James puffed in beside him. "Ah, James, I'm glad you're sleeping with me tonight. Should be a nice little change, small break from sleeping with Philip, of course, while he's sleeping in Boco's shed for tonight. Well, a couple of nights," said Edward. "Of course," said James. He was still worrying about Tidmouth Sheds. He kept thinking about it so long that poor Edward saw him. Edward knew something wasn't right. "Are you feeling okay, James?" "Oh, of course I am," said James. "Why would I be?" Something isn't right about you. Something wrong?" "No," said James. "No, everything's okay, Edward. Thank you very much." "But," said Edward, "don't worry, Edward. You just need to take care of your own problems." "I don't have any problems." "Well, at the moment," said Edward. "Well, so do I. I don't have any problems. Just take care of your own ones. Good night, Edward." And James backed down to his berth. Edward was puzzled. Something isn't right," he said. By the next morning, all the 3 engines were waking up. "Rise and shine, James," said Edward. "Ah, morning," said James. And James was still thinking about Tidmouth Sheds. Edward knew James was still not okay. "Are you sure there's nothing wrong, James?" said Edward. James was starting to get a bit puzzled. He knew Edward was a good engine to listen to in case if an engine has a problem, but James was worried what would Edward say. He was worried if he told Edward or Henry, they would start missing Tidmouth Sheds. "I don't want to tell them or anyone else, or else maybe Edward and Henry could start missing Tidmouth Sheds, and that'd be bad for me to do that," said James. James just try another lie. Nothing," said James. "I am just staying away from my morning goods train that Philip's shunting." James was right. Philip was just shunting all the trucks in line. Rachel was also part of the train. "Very well then," said Edward. "Good luck with it." "Thanks," said James. With his whistle, James puffed away. Something isn't right, said Edward. I know there is. Soon, Philip finished jumping the train, and James buffled up to it. Thanks, Philip, said James. You're welcome, said Philip happily, as he went with you. Who want these of you? With two of his whistle, James puffed away. Rachel was still worrying about James as well. Philip was speaking to Edward, however. Say, Edward, said Philip. James has been acting weird since he came back from his passenger train yesterday when I took his coaches away. When he popped into Wellsville, he looked very strange. I know, said Edward. That's not like James. Well, sometimes. Like, he's always joyful and happy, like holding Rachel or being late on his sub-coaches or being a rescue engine pulling the mail. Anything like that. Something isn't right about James, said Edward. But I hope we could try and find a way to help him. Are you sure there's something wrong with him? Believe me, Philip, I have dealt with a lot of engines in my past time. I'm always there if they need help. I know what James is trying to do. He tried to avoid telling me. That's what other engines do to me. But I always find a way to get them to tell me the problem. Don't you think it's private? Said Philip. I know, Philip. I know, said Edward. But James is my friend. I may not be his best friend like Henry is, but I'm sure if he sees Henry can help him. They are best friends, you know. Very well then, said Philip. But since James was worrying about Tidmouth sheds, Edward was starting to worry for James. Meanwhile, James was still pulling his goods train. He was still thinking about Tidmouth sheds. He didn't tell Rachel it either. Rachel was still worried for James. Oh dear. I'm not like his best friend Henry. But James has to tell someone because he's not looking right. Edward would be the engine for that job. James soon stopped at the red signal. He had to wait for it to change green. He was still thinking about Tidmouth sheds when he heard a familiar whistle. Oh, that'd be Hen, he said. And indeed, it was. Henry pulled up beside James. Hello, James, said Henry. Hey, Hen, said James sadly. Henry was puzzled. Oh, are you working on Leopard's Branchstone again? Yes, said James. And this time, said James, Rachel's with me. Oh, I can see that, said Henry. But Henry knew something wasn't right. He saw James' face. James? Yes, Hen, said James. Is something wrong? James was puzzled. What do you mean? I mean, said Henry, that, well, something isn't right with you. You don't seem to be like your normal self. Happy, you know. Well, said James, James knew if an engine tells the best of his problem, it will help. He knew Henry was his best friend, and he wanted to tell him that about his Tidmouth problem. But he knew if he told Henry and Edward, James would start to think they would get upset missing Tidmouth like him. Nothing, said James. Just nothing. But James, I know something is right with you. Come on, I'm your best friend. Nothing's wrong with me, said James. The scent turned green. Sorry, Hen, let's go. And James puffed away with Rachel. Goodbye, Henry, said Rachel. Goodbye, Rachel, said Henry. Henry was worried for his best friend. Oh no, this isn't going to go down well. James arrived at another signal. No, Toby was there with Henrietta. Hello, James, said Toby. Oh, hey, Toby. Oh, hey, Toby, said James. Toby, he knew so it wasn't right. Henrietta, do you see what I'm seeing? Honestly, Toby, Sarah, James doesn't look right. I don't think he isn't happy. Sarah, should we try acting? I suppose why not, said Toby. Hey, James, said Toby. Yes, said James. Something isn't right about you. Is something bothering you? Said Toby. Oh, said James. No, not really. Like, I was something bothering me. Well, everyone has a problem, said Renetta. Even you do. No, I don't, said James. Well, not right now, I don't. He's trying to get away with it, said Toby. We cannot let him do it. Well, I understand that, said Toby. But if there's a problem you need to explain, you can always tell us. Well, thanks, said James. But, or you could always tell Edward, said Renetta. He's very wise. Or maybe you could tell the Fat Controller, said Toby. Even your best friend Henry, said Renetta. James just sighed. I don't know, said James. But I don't have any problems at the moment, as James was trying to lie. He didn't want to tell Toby either, because he remembered how Toby sometimes stared at the sheds. He figured out upset him. His signal turned green. Must go, said James. Goodbye, you two. And James speed off. Bye, said Rachel. Oh well, said Toby. We tried our best. Never mind, Toby, said Renetta. I'm sure an engine will get him one of these days. Now come on, we better deliver these pastures up to the next station. And Toby and Renetta puffed away. It was just coming to the end of the day. James pulled in to Wellsworth with Rachel after a long goods train. She shunted her to a side. Thanks, James, she said. You're welcome, said James sadly. James backed down onto the shed beside Edward. Edward saw James pulling into the sheds. Well, good evening, James, he said. Oh, good evening, Edward. James's problem had just gotten worse and worse. But he didn't want to tell anyone else besides the Formula members as well. Since he didn't tell any of the Formula members, he didn't want to tell any of the Steam Team members nor other engines. Not even the Fat Controller. What if the Fat Controller gets mad at me for saying what I said James. Edward knew James was still thinking about his problem. He knew he can't let James get away with this. James, said Edward. Yeah, said James. James was wondering if it was going to be another trick Edward had for him. I know this may sound weird out of me, but what's actually wrong with you? James was surprised by this one. I told you nothing's wrong with me. James, I know a lot of engines where they have problems, said Edward. And I know I always explained about the problems. I'm not trying to be a straw-faced and say I'm the best, wise engine. But what I'm trying to say is, said Edward, that I've dealt with our engine who try to get away and they don't want to tell anyone unless they think it might cause some trouble. But James, when you ever have a problem, you need to tell an engine, even if it's not me or Henry, your best friend. I think you should have told Henry about your problem, including maybe I don't know, Toby. Well, I did see them today, said James. Did you tell them? No. Edward was surprised. You should have told Henry, to be honest. He is your best friend. I know, said James. I know I should have told Toby as well, since he's a member of our team. Now, said Edward, since you have me and Philip is doing something, can you please tell me what's wrong? James sighed. Very well then, Edward. You are the leader of the gang after all. Leader of the team, said Edward. So, what's wrong? James explained the whole situation what Gordon said to Spencer about the whole day from yesterday and today. Edward understood this very well. I didn't want to tell you or Henry, or else I think the two of you might miss him, Miss Shed. Maybe Toby as well, since he did stay there for a few times. And I didn't want to tell the fat controller either, as I think he'll get mad at me. And he might take away my boyfriend or anything like that, said James. Edward sighed. James, I think I understand this feeling. James sighed. Edward, what was it like for you when you first moved here, when you left the sheds? Edward smiled. Oh, James. At first, it was a bit of a bumpy start, since I normally used to live at the sheds. But after I got used to a few days, I understand how things work here, and now I enjoyed staying at Wellsworth, since it's the start of my branch line, so I really gotten used to it. That's good, said James. I'm glad you gotten used to it then. Edward chuckled. Oh, James. You could have told Henry about this. Like he's stayed out, including Toby a few times. They'll understand it as well. Why would you think we miss it if you told us? 'Cause then I might be hurting your feelings, said James. Then I might leave you guys worried as well. I didn't want to have control of Idol, that he might get mad at me. Edward chuckled. Oh, James, the fat controller will never get mad at you. He will understand this feeling. I mean, of course, Henry did visit the sheds one time when he was taking Emily's place there. Remember that? Yeah, when he was trying to be a rescue engine, said James. So you see, said Edward, some good things come out of this. James smiled. You're right, said James. I should have not been like that. I should have told you or anyone else. Thanks, Edward. And tomorrow I will tell Henry and Toby about this, including Rachel and Philip, said James. That's a good engine, said Edward. Let's get some sleep. The next morning, Henry and Toby and Henrietta came to Tipton's sheds. James was there. He was just had Rachel behind him since they'd gone pick up another goods train on Edward's branch line somewhere else. Like the docks. James spoke to them. Henry, Rachel, Toby, Henrietta, and Philip. I'm sorry for what happened yesterday. I should have told you guys about my problem, he said, and he explained the whole situation. We did. I had a hard time when I was staying at Osdale End, since it's small, And I had a bumpy start off of Vicarstown, but Rosie showed me what to do. Yes, and Philip showed me around Wellsworth. And Henrietta showed me about lower Osdale, I believe it's called. Osdale End, whatever. Toby. And I'm sure when you got your branch line, Ivor will probably kept you well. You're right, said James. He did. Well, I can't wait to get back to my branch line. I'm just hoping that Ivor takes care of it well. I'm sure he is, said Philip. But why don't you tell your problem to us, since Ever was the first one? Agreed, said Rachel. Thanks, you guys, said James. Now, if you excuse me, excuse me, said James. I better make up for some lost time on my work on this branch line. All the other engines agreed. Once I'm done here, I hope I can go back to my branch line and tell Ivor all about it. How do you think he's getting on? Said Toby. He must be doing fine, said Henrietta. James smiled. I hope he is, said James. James is now understand about feelings, and he learns that it's okay to ask someone for help. Not only angels have this problem, but humans have this problem as well. But Jason understands that he can always tell a friend of his, even if his best friend Henry, or wise angel like Edward and Toby for the samples, it's okay to ask for help, even if it's about his feelings. But ask about Ivor, well, Ivor's story will have to wait until next time.
Let's go on and have some adventures with Thomas and Norris when Sodor's greatest adventures.